Well, hi and hello there. You're listening to Fault Summits, a history podcast about the American West. I am Mason Orlando, and today with me is the wonderful Jess Lee
Woo! Hello, lovelies.
and the wonderful Marcelo Aguilar.
I'm here to suck your time.
Time is all you have now.
And I'm going to take the next 40 minutes of it.
So, for our listeners, I have a special treat for you. You won't have to listen to me rag on. Jess is going to go ahead and helm the wheel here. And they are bringing us a story that I'm very excited about.
Who?
So, before I start this story, I have to ask, how do you feel about magic and mysticism and psychics?
I feel that they're very entertaining.
But no true belief in it?
Absolutely not.
That's okay, me either. But what about you, Marcelo?
Well, I am dressed like Swamp Thing, and so I'm like specifically a big fan of the Swamp Thing Alan Moore comic book series, and like there's a lot of like magic and mysticism stuff going on in there. And
Oh, yeah.
like I've kind of always had a passing not like like hard belief, but like kind of like a shooting star, like, hey, sometimes magic happens. Like it's kind of, you can't rely on it, but sometimes it happens. But yeah, so kind of a passing belief in magic.
And I guess in a way you could say that he's a magical being that comes from the swamp, in his own respect.
He's also a psychedelic swamp preacher.
Oh, absolutely. Anyways, so I'm really excited about this story because not only does it encompass and bring together the ideas of magic, mysticism, illusionism, psychic all of the things within that realm. But we're also going to talk about an individual that potentially and most likely put himself into situations that would. There's also a lot of there is bigamy, there is crime, there is con artistry, and a lot of other crazy but interesting things to talk about. So today, the subject I would really am so excited to share with you all is the story of Alexander, the man who knows.
Knows what?
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready?
What does he know?
All.
Oh, well, I bet he's got some fun stories to tell.
So Claude Alexander Conlin was born on June 30th, 1880 in Alexandria, South Dakota, which is a small town in Hanson County, though he grew up primarily in southeastern Alaska. His parents were both Irish immigrants, with his father, Berthold, I hope I'm saying that right, affectionately known as BMJ, was a physician, and his mother, Martha, was a homemaker. In his childhood, his parents would affectionately call him CA for short, and his brother Clarence was called CB.
So, like, what was the name of the town he was born in? Did you say
Berthold?
Alexander?
Alexandria.
Alexandria? Alexander was born in Alexandria?
Yes,
Got it.
got it. But his first name is Claude.
What was his dad's name again?
His father's name is Berthold or Bertold.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Berthold. I thought that's what his name was.
Oh
I was
no,
like, wow,
no,
they were
no.
just out of pocket with names back then.
I know it's a name that you don't really hear anymore. So I have a hard time pronouncing it, and I apologize to anybody out there listening
I
to
mean,
this who shares the same name. If I butchered it, I am so sorry.
anyone from 100 years ago, let us know in the comments how to pronounce your name.
I mean, I don't think you need to apologize after the kind of hosting I do on this podcast. So
So apparently.
As long as you're not spewing obscenities, I think you're doing well.
Okay. Well, Claude spent much of his growing up years hunting and fishing, but that did not deter him from his early interest in magic. He would visit traveling shows coming into town whenever he could, as well as regularly frequenting the magic section of his local library.
wait,
There's a magic section in the library?
Yeah,
I didn't know about that. I would have been going there more.
Yeah,
All I
you're
knew is
gonna
that they
have to
had
go
DVDs.
check it out.
Man, I gotta renew my library card.
I love my local library. I love to support those people. They definitely need as much as they can right now. So in the local library, he would discover a book called Hoffman's Modern Magic and other similar books that would encourage his curiosities to the wonders and mysteries of life and magic. However, it is said that the revealing pictures in his father's medical books was what made him also gain an infatuation with women.
No,
I,
the most dangerous game.
they
That
were
is
they weren't medical books, but they were indeed publications that my stepdad had that increased my interest in women. So I get that.
I mean, I grew up with my mother being a nurse and retired as a nurse practitioner. And I remember being younger and flipping through most of her medical books. And a lot of it was, well, as a child, I thought to myself, well, this is very gross. But I understand why these images are in the textbook because you want to be able to learn as much about them as possible to provide a formidable treatment. But anyways,
See,
again,
I had my
again,
dad.
with the nude pictures, I do remember seeing a lot of that as a kid too, and like it was never like an insinuous feeling that I got from them or anything. It was more just like I've just always been interested in the human body in general.
For
And
sure,
I
it's
think
about how
a
it's like
lot of that's
presented.
where it started.
Yeah, it's like about how it's presented to you as a kid. Like, when I was a kid, like I found my dad's shed had a bunch of like topless like Playboy pictures like stuck up all over the wall, and I was like, well, okay, those are boobs. And that was a little bit weirder to see that because there was no explanation and no context. But like now, like my kid is like familiar with it because there's lots of artwork with like women like painted artwork or whatever, or like figurines or whatever of like painted women or whatever topless. And so it's like breasts are normal and it's like a natural thing, but there's no weirdness to it because there's
Right.
context for it.
The human body is the human
Beautiful.
body.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add about boobs, Mason?
No, your dad's shed sounds kind of cool though.
I'm sure you would.
Can we go back to the shed thing? Can we?
Are we 13 again?
Yeah.
Always and forever.
So at age 17, he was expelled from school and decided to move out and travel to the East Coast.
Okay.
And understandably against his parents' approval.
Just straight up like I'm going. Fido goes east.
He's like, you know what? I give up and I'm leaving.
His little knapsack and his stick, and he's like, all right, I'm out of here.
Didn't know going to the East Coast was an option when you got kicked out of school.
Go be a sailor. All right.
But you're about to find out why.
Oh.
So
you got
af-
rich.
So after his big move, he found work at the most famous spiritualist resort located in Lilydale, New York. And it is here that he would learn the great majority of his knowledge for his future career. However, during his time here, working as a boat boy and a cleaner, he claimed he would learn of the fraudulence of the people who frequented the resort. And most importantly, he learned the psychology of the so-called psychics who would turn certain effects of their craft into what they claimed were quote-unquote miracles performed by the spirits. It was supposedly this discovery which made him decide to move back west. But because he was still intent on making a career out of performing magic, he decided along the way to meet another well-known magician at the time by the name of T. Nelson Down, also known as the King of Coins. And I won't go into too much detail about Mr. Down, but at the time, he was known to be the most famous sleight of hand performer, and he was from Iowa. He was also known to have many visitors within the magician circuit stop by to see him on a regular basis.
Okay. So he was like got to know all the grifters and everyone around town and like that little area and became a familiar face.
Exactly, yeah.
I
And so, but Mr. Down, he was like, if you see the performers that like do the little coin tricks in their hand and make them disappear and whatnot, that's what he was most famous for.
gotcha.
So he called him the King of Coins
King of Coins.
with a K.
Not the king of spelling.
I
What's
He
feel,
had
that?
so many. I said not the king of spelling, but he had so many coins though.
Yeah.
I feel like leaving New York because you just saw how shifty of a place it is something that anyone I've known that didn't make it to New York and had to leave for whatever reason told me about New York. Like
I
it's something
mean,
you say when you get like kicked out of a place. It's like, oh, it's just so corrupt.
it's not even necessarily getting kicked out. It's like maybe you just go to a place and you're like, oh, this is definitely not for me. Like this is just not for me, kind of thing.
Fair enough.
That would make sense, absolutely. So Claude had a real niche for being a nomad and eventually landed himself back in Alaska to take part in the current gold rush. After his arrival, he would befriend a Greek man named Pericles Alexander Pantages, who would go on to buy many theaters and create the Pantages theater circuit, which was popular at the time for its vaudeville performances. So I'm going to stop right here for a second and mention that I did a little bit of research on who this Pericles Pantages person was. And again, he, from what I read, was a very, very problematic person that I might want to talk about in the future. But he was most well known for owning a large string of theaters along the West Coast at that time. At least a few of them are in the state of California, and I believe the most famous one is in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
Oh,
And
nice.
My neck of the woods.
it's still there to this day.
Nice.
If you look it up online and you see the pictures, they did such an incredibly beautiful restoration of this place and still has a lot of the original Art Deco design and in the walls and the ceiling and a lot of the original chandeliers. Is just extremely extravagant.
What is the
But
name of the building again? Of the place?
Pantages Theater.
That's such a cool name. Pantages Theater. Look at that hat.
I know that outfit, that's just like the image of what you would see or what you would envision as somebody being a magician at that time period.
He also looks like somebody I saw waiting in line at a liquor store really late at night.
I feel like if this guy comes up on like your Tinder, you definitely swipe whatever way is the
The
red
nope.
flag way. Yeah, the nope.
Wherever the red X is, you go that way.
But to be fair, the satin does look very comfy and
I mean, he's
probably was
rocking it.
very expensive
Yeah.
back then.
He just looks like a seductive lizard in that thing. Like he looks like he's got something up his sleeve.
Yeah, he
Hello.
does. The rabbit sitting on his head
Yes.
with that hat.
Would you like to see a trick?
No. Why are you talking to me? This is a
I've
urinal,
got a
sir. Why are you here?
Sir, I'm just trying to eat my sandwich in my car.
I'm just trying to have my lunch by myself.
It's really hot. Why are you wearing that?
Some people say that during his time here, it is suspected that Claude may have had a personal role in the murder of another individual, which we have told the story of on this podcast.
Uh-oh.
Da-da-da-da-da. None other than gangster Jefferson Randolph Soapy Smith.
My boy.
Oh, he killed Soapy?
There's a story saying that he possibly could have been involved in the killing
Yeah.
of Soapy.
Soapy got dropped by this magician.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, if you have a comment, I'd like to
No,
hear it.
I was just thinking today how if Soapy Smith was alive, he would have already been the president of the United States and probably, yeah,
but
absolutely would have been a politician.
thankfully, at the time there were magicians around to stop guys like that from becoming president.
Yeah.
This is
Not
what
by
we're
this
missing.
magician.
This is what we're missing in our country is more just wild card magicians committing like pre-crime murders or something.
Yeah.
I mean, David Blaine.
So the story goes that the reason for killing Soapy Smith was because he was out to get his friend Pantages for whatever reason. However, several folks claim that the story is false for the sole purpose of adding to the mystery of Alexander. But what do you think?
If I'm being honest, I would probably tell you that there was that's probably not a true story, but in my heart of hearts, I want to believe that's what happened. I want to believe that there was
A magician.
magician in the mix.
A magician con man battle that ended with one of them dying. Yeah, it's like Highlander.
With guns.
Shenanigans.
Just with guns and whiskey.
And knives.
I just picture it's just like an escalating series of like, shake my hand. It's like it's a fake hand, and then like he pulls out flowers, and then pulls that out, and then it's like a gun, and then that's what does it.
It's like The Prestige. If it's me and Marcella directed and starred in it,
Yep. Batman versus Wolverine fighting magic.
So Claude did a few different jobs during his time back in Alaska. So he worked as a faro dealer, which was faro was a very popular card game at the time.
Oh, I thought you meant like pharaohs, like he was dealing in like sarcophagi of like pharaohs being shipped around or something.
No. Faro is a card game. I think it was kind of similar to poker, but
Okay.
a lot of places didn't like the game Faro because it was easier for people to win against the dealer.
Yeah, I mean the magician's the one selling the card game. It's probably got a couple of problems with it.
Yeah. So he was a faro dealer. He was also a gold assayer, a cashier, and of course a psychic. So in the psychic role, he would tell other prospectors where they could supposedly find gold. So aside from all these other jobs he had, Claude also went on to do his first stage performance in 1898 at the age of 18. So he's finally starting to try and dip his feet in the water and see if this is something that he actually wants to pursue in life.
Out of all the jobs that you listed, for some reason being a cashier was like the most suspicious. Like he's like all these other things, and it's like, oh, and he was a cashier on the side. I'm like, what?
He could have been a cashier at like a gambling establishment or something.
Oh, okay. I was like thinking like a grocery store.
Well, that's what I'm assuming. I could be wrong.
By the way, pretending you're psychic and telling people where you think gold is, that is not a profession.
No, that's just lying.
Yeah.
I mean, but back then I imagine it was a lot easier to convince people that you knew where gold was and tell them, just go to this spot and, start.
Again, we go back to this photo. And if like this guy is standing there and he's just like gently pointing some direction with his cane, he's like, gold's over there. And you'd be like, yeah, sure, thanks. Here's $20 or whatever.
Like, thank you. It just turns around and runs away.
Yeah, it just turns into a rabbit and just leaves.
You go through hell and high water just to go to Alaska to go hand for gold. You roll in, you see this guy, and he's like, "Hey, give me some money. I'll tell you where the gold is."
Yeah, clearly
And
this guy knows what the gold is. Look at him.
yeah, you don't even think that, like, well, why doesn't he just get the gold himself if he knows
It's
where the
like
gold is? Like, why? Yeah,
he's like,
anyway.
well, I grew up in Alaska. Of course, I
Yeah.
know where the
I'm
gold.
already rich. Can't you tell?
Yeah. So a few years later, in 1902, he moved to Seattle from Alaska. And it was finally here that he decided to fully embrace himself as a full-fledged and serious magician. He would take on the name Alexander the Great after his friend, whom he worked with in Alaska for the last several years. He would start out performing as a stage illusionist, attempting to develop an act that would rival the famous escape performance that was portrayed by none other than Harry Houdini, respectively.
Oh, nice.
I mean,
Walking in some big footsteps.
those are some really big shoes to fill if you think he could upstage Houdini.
Oh yeah, and they're
Yeah.
all wet.
They're all wet and covered in chains.
BioShock.
Also in this year, he would marry his first wife, Jessie Conlin. Unfortunately, this marriage would only last for about 1 year and would also lead to the long string of marriages that Alexander would have throughout his lifetime.
His never-ending disappearing act.
Yep. Well, I guess so. So there's many references and word-of-mouth gossips that say that Alexander had, depending on which history you read, between 8 and 12 wives.
Damn.
Wow. He must have had a punch card.
Yeah, like
I just can't even imagine.
is there like a buy 7 get 1 free at the ring store? What's going on here?
Well,
Can I ask, is this like a time where like you could still like was he still responsible for them, or did he kind of just like cut out and then like take off his mustache and then turn into a different person and left? I just continue to see him just like leaving in a top hat and just like a cape and running out of town and be like, my work is done here.
I think he was just a big scoundrel, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
You
I
owe us
think the
money.
time
Great. What are you gonna do about it?
I think the time of being like legally obligated or
This is
um
before.
yeah, before all that, especially in Alaska, I feel like it's a relatively new
Oh
thing.
yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
you know.
So during interviews with surviving family members, one would say that he had even more and possibly was even married to more than one woman sometimes.
That sounds about accurate. Yeah.
So after his first marriage failed only a year in, he would shortly meet his second wife, Ethel Lyman, which he supposedly and problematically met when she was only 14 years old.
There we go.
No.
Creepy magician. There we go.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So, an excerpt from one of my resources that I found to be very interesting. I wanted to include it into this episode, if it's okay for you guys, for me to recite it.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, it says fate would play a significant part in much of Alexander's life. A chance call to leave his hotel in San Francisco early one morning saved his life when the hotel was destroyed in an earthquake as he crossed the street. And it was following a blizzard which stopped trains transporting his show and leading to potential disaster that one of his assistants suggested he simply do his short mind read set as the main act. Despite his reluctance, he had little choice in the matter, and the success of the quote-unquote propless show surprised even Alexander. His career never looked back, and now in his mid-30s, he discarded the large props and relied on the tremendous skills as the showman to put over an act of mind reading, taking much inspiration or simply copying from other top mentalists at the time, including Anna Ava Faye and Sammy Baldwin. Are you guys familiar with these names at all?
Sammy Baldwin sounds familiar, but that's
I'm
about
not.
it.
So, despite already being married and now with a 5-year-old son, this is where he marries his third wife, 17-year-old Della Martell,
Hmm.
in 1907.
He
Yeah.
was in his mid-30s.
Give some ideas.
I believe so. Um,
Just checking.
yeah.
But he's just skipping around at this point. He's
Yeah,
like,
I'm like, I'm still a little bit confused with the timelines, especially when it comes to who
I,
is married at like what point of his life,
yeah,
especially since, it seems like he's been with so many people.
yeah.
Like,
It sounds like his type is like in a hurry. Like that's
yeah,
his favorite type of woman.
I
exactly. Just
again,
somebody that he can like, tug around. But
Yeah. Hey, 17-year-old, you want to come live a crazy magician life?
like,
Cool.
hey, you cute.
Yeah.
again, ladies on the dating app, if you see that, red flags. You know what? In fact, men on dating apps, if you see that, red flags.
Yeah. If you see a magician, run.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it says he was already married. So he marries his third wife while he's still married to his second
Are
wife.
we sure this guy's in Dewey Cox? Because he sounds like Dewey Cox.
A little bit.
So he marries his third wife in 1907, and he returns to San Francisco to act as a psychic, knowing he would have plenty of customers seeking to
Great
speak with
sentence.
lost loved ones from the earthquake the previous
Really, the
year.
divorce from the previous wife is pretty low on his to-do list that day. He's like, no, 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 no. I gotta go back and I gotta get groceries. I gotta do laundry. Then I'll divorce my wife.
I've got money to make,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got
And-
divorces are not cheap.
I
Go
like
be a
I like how
psychic.
cynical he is. He's like, oh wow, lots of people are going to want to talk to their dead relatives. Um,
I can make some money off
so I'll
this.
just go there. I guarantee you, there's people in Florida and North Carolina who are doing that right now.
Talking to dead relatives.
Yeah, trying to like con people into like talking to their dead
Oh,
relatives or
Well, I mean,
there's always going to be people out there,
yeah, I mean, the
out
whole
to
country
con
was.
and take advantage on people's
Yeah,
emotions
wasn't there like
after
a whole.
devastating disasters.
Yeah, and I mean, haven't we always kind of been like that ever since? Like, what was that show that used to be on where like that guy would stand in front of an audience and then guess their dead relatives' names? I can't remember,
uh,
but yeah, like
Oh, I know
and
who you're talking about. Yeah, that the cold reading.
that one. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Chris Edwards, was that his
Something
name?
like that. Yeah,
something
some
like yeah.
generic guy, but
I think so. Yeah,
It's
like he,
really
we,
funny.
he was. Yeah, he like it's the exact same thing. It's just conning people by manipulating their emotions.
right, it's improvising, just like coming up with a thing, getting them to react, and then building this whole weird thing that he's got around like whatever reaction they have.
Have you
Exactly.
guys ever watched the John Edward bloopers?
No,
Yes,
They're pretty
yes, the ones
funny.
where he fails. It's
Yeah.
really
you're gonna have to show that to me
they're
later.
like they're hard thuds. Like they stop the thing. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of these.
Yeah. Your uncle's not named Joe? No, it's not. He didn't die. He's actually right here.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry. How you doing? Yeah, that's those are something.
I knew he was in this room.
Okay. So Claude did his stage shows working with the Pantages theater chain, which is where he would kickstart his fame. He began wearing a jeweled turban, oriental costumes including shiny shoes and delicate robes, and performing with a crystal ball.
Can I show it?
Yes. His career would start out with him having the stage name Astro the Seer, but after being on the circuit for a little while, this would evolve into the name he would forever be best known as Alexander the Man Who Knows. He would trade in his large props from his earlier magic shows and work primarily off of his skills as an over the top mentalist and psychic. He would marry yet again in 1915 to Lillian Marion, who would become a big part of his life and even take part in his stage shows for 14 years until, not surprisingly, she too filed for divorce.
Why?
So
Because
go
he
back.
opened a box and then a new wife came out of it and he married her.
Yeah. So this picture right here, that's Marion. And then if you go forward 2 more slides.
That was his longtime partner.
Or actually, yeah, go forward a few more. Okay, so this picture right here, I believe, so that is Alexander at the top wearing the turban. That was his,
Excellent.
you know, that's one of the things he was known for. The woman in the middle, I believe, is Marion. And then the other 2 women on either side of him were twin performers who were also part of the circuit and also would participate as assistants in his acts as well.
Can we go back to the one where he's like sitting on that like throne
Oh,
or
the
chair or whatever
throne?
that thing was? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I get it. Like this is like a white guy named Alexander who's like putting on all this like South Asian stuff with the Buddhas and everything. But like that picture just gives the vibes of like a kid at Comic-Con, like sitting in for a photo op thing. Like
It
it's just
really does.
like kind of uncomfortable. Like this isn't really my thing, but I'm pretending because it's a cool picture. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
how that looks.
And I'm going to get a little bit further into the problematic aspects of this as well.
Oh, I mean, I don't, what's
Because,
what's the
you
issue?
know.
It
What's
honestly,
that?
it honestly reminds me of some picture like my parents would have of me from the '80s that I've completely forgotten about,
Where they dress you up
up
as
like
something
this,
against your will.
like it's just this, and it's horrible and like culturally insensitive, borderline racist, and they're just like, yeah, no, it was the '80s. We just dressed kids up like they were different kinds of people and laughed at the kids. But
I got dressed up as an American once.
To be fair, a lot of that stuff wasn't like really borderline. It was just straight out racist.
Mhm.
what would you call putting on a sombrero in Tijuana and getting on top of a donkey that's painted like a zebra?
It depends who's doing it and how much did you tip the people that were offering you the donkey.
And what year in college
No,
are
they
you?
weren't offering the donkey. No, it wasn't like that. I was a kid. It was a
Sure.
donkey supposed to look like a zebra for some reason.
Was it a grandparent or a parent?
It was a grandparent.
That's fine. No, that's fine. That's removed. It's okay. They're
I
different.
mean, because when you're a kid, you only have control over so much.
Yeah. And your
I-
parents should know better. Your grandparents they get a pass.
Fair enough.
Especially in Southern California, there's kind of an understanding.
You did meet my grandma. I forgot about that.
Yeah, remember we used to hang out. She would yell at Fox News, and we would just like help her move furniture.
I
Miss
wish I
that
could have
woman.
met her. She sounded so awesome.
It's great. Yeah, I believe she said that was her favorite kind of people. Mason, is that what she said?
Not what she said, but for the podcast, that's what we're gonna.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a sweet woman.
So Alexander's shows would include a backdrop of extravagant and lavishly decorated Oriental designs and props. And would include several beautiful female assistants, also wearing gorgeous and sparkling show-stopping outfits.
Yeah, so this is how the Bachelor started. This is where it originated from. Was this guy having new assistants every other week?
I would not be surprised by that.
they look so unhappy.
Yeah.
I think he just wanted people to look serious for the photos so he could be like, this is how serious I am about this magic, and this is how serious I am about everything that I do, and forget about the part where I'm a white man pretending to be an Eastern person. But I don't know. I mean, yes, it was a thing of the times, but it doesn't make it right.
Yeah,
I kind
plus they look cold. That's I think mostly what this photo is saying is that they're just like in a
Especially the
cold
one
room.
on the left,
She
yeah.
looks particularly chilly. Like she looks really like uncomfortable in this whatever room they're in.
and he's wrapped in like half of Sedoma County.
No,
so-
yeah, he's got blankets and everything else on him. Like he's fine, but she's just wearing like a jogger underneath.
Oh man,
So he would claim in his performances of how he came upon all of his magical treasures during important mysticism trips to the Middle East, which, not surprisingly, was absolutely fabricated.
Wasn't a
promoted-
world traveling adventuring magician.
Yeah. He promoted his stage act mostly as a psychic and a mind reader, but he would also offer private readings to individuals after the stage shows, which would end up bringing him a much higher cash flow than his stage performances would.
Like a Jordan Peterson type deal.
Does
Trust
he
me.
does he do stuff on the side that I don't know
Yeah,
about?
private practice, quote unquote. But I'm sorry I brought JP up.
And,
We'll
and
talk.
magician shows for hire too.
God, I would love if he got into magic.
So his performances became increasingly popular with the addition of audience participation. His most well known act was what was called the Simula Seance, also known as the Question and Answer Act. So audience members would write down questions on a piece of paper, seal them in an envelope, and Alexander would answer them live on stage before opening the envelope to read the questions. So think Johnny Carson's character portrayal as Karnak the Magnificent on The Tonight Show between the 60s into the 1980s. Do you remember that skit?
Mhm. Yeah, where he would like hold the envelope and
The
like
big turban?
yeah.
They parodied it a lot. If you haven't seen it, if you're younger than us.
So I think when I was looking into the while I was doing research on this story, I had to do a little bit of research on this character from Johnny Carson's late night show, just to kind of get to remind myself, oh yeah, I remember that character. But they were also talking about how one of the best things that they read during one of those skits was he held the envelope up to his head. He said, Sis Boomba. And he opened the envelope and it said, what was it? It said something like, name the sound that a sheep makes when it explodes.
Kind of like that.
I thought that was pretty good. And I'm pretty sure you could still find a clip of that performance on YouTube somewhere. But anyways, so he would even offer afternoon women's only matinee shows, which would snake around whole city blocks filled with women waiting
Don't say
for mystical.
snake.
Yeah, snake. So the lines would snake around whole city blocks filled with women waiting for mystical advice and answers to their questions.
Don't like that at all.
I mean, he was a popular man.
Yeah, but to have women only sessions.
Yeah, that gives off cult vibes.
It does kind of give off some cringy vibes, I'm not gonna lie.
Just, like. But
Cool chicks
I-
only.
Yeah, like it's just a weird thing to do. It's kind of like if the band wants to hang out, but they don't want any of your dude friends to come. It's like, well,
So, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like the goal that it would be really great if only girls showed up. That'd be fun. That'd be awesome. But when you specifically request that, you're like, oh, that's a red flag.
Yeah. So his shows would sell out weeks in advance, and he would make millions of dollars from doing national and worldly tours. His mail order side hustle included several merchandise options ranging from books to crystal balls, as well as offering his fans the option to receive astrological advice and answered questions for the sum of, and this is a quote from an actual advertisement, two $1 bills in a self-addressed envelope. At one time, he had a
What?
that's the Simpsons 1-800 the happy dude. Send me $1 and you'll be guaranteed complete happiness.
it's
Remember?
two $1 bills, and you could have your questions answered, and you could get astrological advice.
Okay.
But it has to be $2 bills in an envelope with a return address.
See, and that's
Did
the
he have
part
a
where it's like,
Jamaican accent too?
I feel like he has a sinister reason for like the return address. Like it has to have the return address. And like him being a magician, that's actually like the reason for his, thing. Like he's got like a misdirection going on.
Well, I mean, like if these people are sending him money, he has to be able to send these things back to them one way or another. Um,
Right.
But if he's psychic,
Basically, I think there's a lot of logical things that aren't going to line up in this situation.
yeah. But with this side hustle, it says that I read that at one time he had a few secretaries whose only job was to mail the answers and the purchase astrology charts to these customers.
Yeah, he's
who,
automating.
yeah.
Sounds like he's a job creator, you know? I think I'm
In
turning
a way,
someone around on
he
this
kind of
guy.
was. But another one of his great strengths was in business and design, and he used this to his advantage when designing his show posters and advertisements.
these are really
So,
fucking cool.
yeah, so we'll go through the show posters. He had a whole lot of them, but I picked out the ones that were the best ones. So this poster,
Whoa. Like I've
with the
seen that
stripes
in like
in
an
the
actual person.
background. So this poster, when I was working up in Wisconsin this summer, I walked into a restaurant and saw this, and this is the image that helped influence me to want to talk about him.
You can see, I mean, there's just like a lot. Like that's a gripping image.
It really is. Like I said, he was just really good at doing posters,
Whoa.
to advertise his shows. Like this one's kind of like I don't like the aspect of like how he portrays his skin complexion, but the fact that he turns his turban into a question mark is kind of cool.
Hmm.
Now, he does look very Italian in that.
This one I thought, he almost this is almost like it looks like
Big
artistry
brother.
that like artistry you would see for like a monster movie
It
poster.
looks like it should be like on a skateboard. Like it
Yes,
should be a sticker that should be on a skateboard.
Hey,
that could very easily be a sticker for that.
Alexander always watches. That could be.
Alexander, the man who shreds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see at the top too where it advertises that it's at the Pantages Theater.
Yeah, I mean, the definitely big ups to his graphic design team. They knew what they were doing.
Absolutely. I thought this one was really cool too, where it's like the laser beams coming from his eyes. And I think there's one more. So this is the last one.
I like that one.
I think
Mhm.
that this
That
one,
looks like a movie cover.
this one I would say is probably my favorite one.
World's greatest master of mental mystics. And you know what? I
Cool.
wouldn't be able to argue that with him.
Nope. He looks like he inspired probably several characters on Venture Brothers.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. So so I kind of thought this was kind of funny when I was researching. Even just like the posters themselves are a really cool thing to talk about. So they're called they are what's called a chromolithograph poster.
Hmm.
So the chromolithograph posters were marked as having been printed in Bombay, India, yet this was another lie created to continue the illusion that Alexander was the exotic world traveler that he claimed to be.
Right.
He would detail them with Eastern-looking fonts and backgrounds to give them more of a sense of mysticism. One portrait portraying light coming from his eyes while looking at his crystal ball, and another of him gazing at visions into another. He would also, again problematically, portray himself with a tanner or darker skin complexion to try and give him the look of an Eastern mystic. He was a showman after all, and he claimed he learned early on that telling a good story was better than the truth. But to this day, his posters are still very highly in demand.
I like it.
I mean, I can see why. Like they're they're just really, really cool to just look at. Like there's all kinds of spooky stuff going on.
Incredibly detailed, and even the ones that have very minimal color in them are really well done.
Yeah, like the color really stands out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind owning one. Like a reprint, I'm sure like the originals are expensive as all hell.
Yeah,
But like these are really cool.
like the originals go for like thousands of dollars, but I think you could get prints of them from places like Etsy and eBay.
It's also
Perfect.
something fun to have, like a poster where like a guy's like title is like 5 words long, world's greatest master of mental mystics, as opposed to just like, Andrew or Alexander the magician. Like, yeah, there's pageantry there. It's cool.
So I
Yeah.
got a week left at my current gig, so I'm thinking about changing my email signature just to world's greatest master of mental mystic.
I dare you.
At, at I can't say the name of my company on the air of the
Master of
internet.
email mystics.
The finance.
So, aside from him including things into his shows, which would be extremely problematic today, he was actually a pretty progressive individual using gadgets that some would say were before his time. He would hide tiny earpieces in his turban, giving the illusion that he was performing legitimate mind reading to his audiences. He would, however, always be incredibly anxious and visibly start sweating and shaking before his shows with the fear that the earpieces could possibly quit working in the middle of an act.
Oh boy.
I mean that happens now with our equipment, so yeah, I can only imagine back then.
Not really with our equipment.
Oh, I screw it up all the time
I see him
at work.
sweat constantly.
Yeah, and
So he would perform acts like Azra. And if you're not familiar with Azra, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. It was also called lighter than air. So this was the illusion of onstage levitation. So
Whoa.
if you've been to a magic show and you see the magician putting somebody under like what looks like a bed sheet and then all of a sudden they just start levitating in the air, that's what that is. So aside from Azra, he would also
I think it's Asra.
Azra.
Asra.
Oh, stop it.
Raw ass.
Raw
Why do I
ass.
allow you to get me like this?
I thought we were playing what's that game? Telephone?
So aside from that act, he would also do things like the double box trick. Are you guys familiar with that one?
Mhm.
So basically, and let me see if I remember this correctly because I had to look it up. He would tell somebody to give him an object. He would tell them to write their signature or name or symbol or anything of to that extent onto a small piece of paper so that they would recognize it. So he would put that piece of paper with the object and act like he was putting it in like his pocket, I believe. So he would give this person from the audience a large box and say, "Okay, open the box." The person opens the large box and there's a smaller box in the middle. And they're like, "Oh, that's a smaller box." And so they open the smaller box and lo and behold, their object that they gave him along with the piece of paper is in that small box. So that's what the double box trick is.
Oh, got it.
Got it.
So it's just kind of like, how the hell did that get there?
Pretty much.
Dang shucks.
Dang shucks.
Well, kick that man's ass. He tricked me.
He lied to me. He's the devil's messenger.
So Alexander would also do a couple of different cabinet tricks and something called a spirit painting. So in this latter trick, he would usually approach people like local politicians and other influential people of the community, and he would offer their pictures to be shown in the spirit paintings at shows for a fee. Because back then, a lot of people were not allowed to advertise for their campaigns. So, spirit painting is basically just kind of the illusion that you start out with a blank canvas, and then all of a sudden, a picture just magically appears.
I think I've done some version of this, like a modern version of it with like a camera where like there's like an exposure and then whatever color the exposure is like some representation of your soul or something. You guys ever done that?
No.
I think I've heard of
Like an
something
aura
like
picture,
that.
maybe?
Yeah, one of those things.
Okay. No, I haven't done that myself, but I've heard about it.
I took one before. It was illuminating.
So with the painting, they would just have a canvas and the painting would be there, or would he just like paint blindfolded or
So some like one way that people can do spirit painting is by being in a dark room or a completely blacked out room, just start painting uh and then a picture would appear. That's one way of doing it.
that could be a fun Halloween game.
You think so?
Absolutely. That would be like paint in a dark room.
So altogether, Alexander was pulling in more than $1 million per season in today's money for his shows, which is a lot of money.
Yeah, that's
He would be credited as the inventor or developer of many of these electric stage effects that are still used in performances today.
Yeah, I mean the
so
earpiece thing is how I mean, how did they have wireless earpieces back then? Or did he have some other like I don't know, is there any like explanation of how he pulled that off?
I
well,
think it was probably like a small microphone.
I feel like
Oh.
he always had all that like the turban and he always had those
Yeah,
robes.
he's got enough
He'd
stuff on there
always
like hide
yeah.
some
Yeah,
stuff.
so the turban usually would like cover his ears, and so he was able to hide the earpieces into his ears because he had the turban covering it.
Right. Okay.
And I mean, that's pretty brave. This was back in the time where a lot of, stage actors and movie actors for that matter, were just dying because this was early this was early use of electricity in those mediums. So like there was a lot of injuries. So, wrapping it in a bunch of cloth is just risky.
Right. Like if it catches on fire, like
Yeah.
you're not getting out
Get
of that quickly.
shocked.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why it
I
was so
mean,
sweaty because he was just getting.
and take in mind that most of this was happening in the 1920s. So like from like the mid 19 teens throughout most of the 1920s, I imagine they probably had at least something back then that would allow him to be able to do that.
Yeah, a big bucket of water sitting right
Yeah.
next to the stage. Like, here, go for it. You'll be fine.
But again, a lot of these things were things that he invented himself as well.
Oh man.
I mean, that everyone I know that's done their own electrical work is the better for it today.
Different colored hair in different spots, but still good people.
So, even with his success, Alexander was known to have run into some trouble from time to time.
No.
Not
Not
surprising,
nice
I
then.
know. Once he was arrested for smuggling bootlegged liquor into the States on a high speed motorboat in the Queen Charlotte Strait from Canada, evading the police.
It's pretty sweet.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm back on this
Prohibition
guy's side.
Very
sucked.
very James Bond way to like bootleg too. I like it a lot.
Yeah. They're like, this is completely unnecessary.
I hope he was in one of his costumes.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't even
Or in
know
that
they
robe.
had high-speed motorboats back then.
I keep being surprised by the technology that you're telling me about at this time. I'm like, what? Earpieces? Jet skis?
I mean, it probably wasn't as high speed as they are now because we have like jet boats and stuff. But they could
Yeah,
probably do a good.
I mean, like back then, the cars they had, I think, their top speed was what, about 45 or 50 miles an hour, and they thought
Right.
that was fast.
Yeah, boat people, um, people that are into boats and gearheads, let us know how fast did boats and cars in this era could go if you were trying to evade the police.
So, along with this string of possible things that he did, I think he also fell into some legal trouble for tax evasion.
No way.
No way.
Has all the makings of a cult leader minus the tax. Never mind, he got the tax evasion.
He also went to trial and spent even more jail time for trying to extort $50,000 from millionaire oil tycoon G. Allen Hancock. And in 1906, he escaped from a jail in Oklahoma.
Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, those last two things are pretty cool.
Yeah, again, still on this guy's side.
His inflated ego and sociopathic behaviors most likely caused him to spend time in jail and prison for various other crimes, though I couldn't find information on what those other things were, unfortunately. I really dug and I'm like, I can't find anything. But I guess that pertains to the mystery of him.
What were his crimes?
Yeah. It's just
You
like,
know,
yeah,
but I think
he did all these other things. And then also, what about the crimes? Don't worry about those. Don't worry about them. Don't worry
Oh,
about them.
oh,
They
and
disappeared.
you mean
done.
aside from the fact that he was still continuously hanging out with women that were like 1/3 his age?
Is that a
Yeah.
crime to be cool?
To be cool. Oh gosh, man of mystery, I tell ya.
And
So
several crimes that
No,
got away
there's,
with.
there's no mystery. He knows.
He
Yeah, he knows what he
yeah,
did.
exactly. So by his early 40s, Alexander had written several books under the pen name C. Alexander. So he would even run his own publishing house from Los Angeles, California, called creatively the C. Alexander Publishing Company. He would go on to write and publish a book called The Life and Mysteries of the Celebrated Dr. Q, also known as the Dr. Q book. So this is the cover of the original first printing, which I thought was super cool. And here's a picture of the title page of the book being personally signed by him.
Again, just fantastic art direction with his business. Like, just that is a cool cover.
Absolutely.
Looks like it came out of like a D&D campaign.
It's like very dark and mysterious. I love it.
I want a similar thing with the moon and the star. The turban, I will think of something else for headgear, but
Yeah.
The Dodgers hat.
absolutely fucking not.
So he would also write and publish some
Meanie.
pro-spiritualist volumes, including a multi-book series called The Inner Secrets of Psychology. And this is another kind of crazy story.
Is that okay? Is that allowed? Oh shit.
What? CFO getting into some stuff?
Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll fix
Mr.
it later.
Permeister, you gotta wait.
Did he say a racial slur again, Mason? I told you to cut his mic.
No, he threw my glasses onto the ground. My back.
You don't need them to see to record. This is a sound.
That's true.
So it's rumored that he would send a couple of his fellow performers or assistants, I'm not sure which, to visit libraries in whatever cities he was performing in to research specific psychology textbooks and then steal pages from them.
Weirdo. He'd make them just go like tear pages out of like library books.
Yeah. So the collection of these stolen pages would eventually become the basis for his own psychology book.
Huh.
Cool.
Yeah, right?
What a
What a chaos magic way of making your own psychology, but just like a bunch of ransom letters.
It's just
together.
like, take bits and pieces from like all these different cities, just merge them all together and say, yep, this is me. This is all mine.
Well, I like how at first I was thinking like that's kind of a dick move, but I mean like he didn't steal the
because
whole book.
He's stealing ideas and writings from many other people who spent years researching this stuff.
I'm talking about for the library and the people that want to read the book later. I mean, he could have stolen the whole book. It's still
yeah.
readable. Don't get me wrong.
He's taking from everybody. He is
He
ruining
really
everybody else except for himself.
He's ruining the experience for everybody.
Which is hard because I look at that picture and it just doesn't look like that guy could do anything wrong.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. That's how he gets you. It's a really good cover, and then you go inside and you're like, what is this glued together.
You could totally trust that face.
Oh shit. Dr. Q. Oh no, guys.
And it's in
Onto
cursive.
something.
So he would often end his shows by saying this: someday, psychology will be taught in schools. And much of his audiences, for the most part, believed that he was just speaking nonsense. But here we are in 2024 with more than a plethora of resources in the subject now.
I mean, I went to college for it, so yeah, he got me.
Yeah, I had a course in psychology when I was in school too, so it's everywhere.
You suckers. You should have just gone to different libraries and torn pages out of psychology books.
Honestly,
Boom.
kind of regret I didn't do that. Oh, this is the best information in this book. I'm taking it with me.
Yeah, right. And and putting all of your trust into a couple of different people doing this special task for you.
You know, you understand. I mean, like it's creeping me out because it's like you're describing this thing, and I'm like, well, isn't this just like what influencers or like aggregators do? You know, like they take all the like work and jokes of everybody else, and then they post it, and then people just follow them, and people just generally trust them, even though it's kind of like a mishmash of other people's work.
Oh my gosh, dude. I think you're really getting into something there.
I mean, that's what science. Sorry, that's what a certain. That's what Tom Cruise's religion.
Don't say it.
Planetology.
Yeah, planetology is. They kind of took a whole bunch of things from
The moon and stars
the
belief.
Mormons, Latter-day Saints, apologies,
Hmm.
and it's just
And then the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
yeah,
They did have the teleporting thing.
yeah. A lot of really bad ideas from the 30s. But anyway, go on. I'm
Oh
sorry.
no, no worries. No, I'm glad we're talking about this. So
We're
in
experts in this subject.
Yeah. So in 1927, at the age of 47, after a decade or more into his fantastical career, Alexander decided to hang up his hat and retire.
It's turban.
Whoa. Yeah,
His turban.
he dribbled his turban.
Yeah. Okay, you got me on that one. He hung up his turban. And so he would be worth approximately $4 million with $4 million, which I tried to do some calculations earlier in the day, and I could have been wrong, but the calculations I came up with is that in today's money, that would be worth about $250 million.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. So, with $4 million under his belt, this ultimately made him the richest man in Vaudeville.
Huh.
A magician, a jail escapist, and a straight up
Like a cop evader trying to bootleg liquor.
you know, and then this is the guy that maybe whatever in the fun story. This is the guy that stopped that other dude from becoming possibly a president or something. It's like, oh, one con man took out another con man. We need more con men to police more con men. That's what we need.
I mean, that's kind of what we have, and that's kind of an issue.
Oh, yeah, the con men started unionizing.
So he kept most of his original posters, props, and stage equipment in storage for a while, but he would eventually sell them all to a magic dealer in Ohio in 1944.
What the fuck is
A magic dealer.
A magic dealer. So okay, so I actually
The guy with a trench coat.
I did not put this in the script, but I did read a little more into it. So this man in Ohio, I don't remember his name, but he was a magic dealer, basically meaning that he had a shop where he dealt in either the sale of renting of props and materials for other magicians. So
Party
he
rentals.
yeah, so he actually ended up selling a lot of Alexander's belongings and posters and whatnot after he retired and sold them to the dealer. And in turn, that person would use most of these props and posters for his own stage shows, kind of as a continuation to pay tribute to Alexander.
Hmm.
So he would do magic shows under the name Alexander the Man Who Knows, but I think that the people going to these shows knew that this was not the original Alexander, that this was basically just tribute shows to
It's
him.
like
I
Gallagher too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the tribute people probably like duped him and like, yeah, they'll pay. They'll think it's a real guy.
Yeah.
Like continuing his tradition.
So he remained in the social circles of many other performers he had met throughout his life, mostly other magicians, illusionists, psychics, and other people within that general profession. And he would also, okay, and I know you're probably gonna, I know you're gonna have something to say about this, Mason. He would also spend a great amount of time at his retreat hunting and fishing, but he also partook in taking nude photographs of women, which he would make a further profit of about $40,000 by selling them to calendar companies.
So
There's nothing wrong with diversifying. This guy is just covering. He's like, you know what? I got these hot ladies who do the magic stuff with me. I may as well just take naked pictures of them.
And sell them to calendar companies.
so he just retired to like, be somebody that like
Big
just
creepy old dude.
just be like, come to my photography cabin. And did he have consent, or did he just be like, okay,
Well, see, and that was the other thing I was thinking about is I was wondering, well, did these women at least get some type of compensation for allowing him to do this?
I doubt it.
I would really hope so, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did it.
He's probably like, hey, I'll tell you what, if you guys go down to the library and tear out some pages of this book for me, I'll give you free photography.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I was just like, I really hope one, these women consented, and two, that they at least got some kind of compensation out of it. Because that would just be so messed up if they did
Well, then definitely let's not look into this matter any further.
it. So, Claude Alexander Conlin would pass away on August 5th, 1954, at the age of 74 due to complications from a surgery trying to remove stomach ulcers. He was buried in Seattle, Washington, and he was survived by 2 sons and 1 daughter.
Wow.
So,
The
I
full life.
yeah, I think if we go to visit Seattle one of these days, we should look him up.
Absolutely.
Go say hi.
I think it's great that like you can do all the cult stuff and not even have to be in a cult.
See, that's the part that I was like listening to the whole time. I'm like, okay, so where's the part where he starts to cult and then becomes an evil dirtbag? And I'm like, oh, he was just a one-man dirtbag. Okay, cool. How refreshing.
It's just like you don't need a whole system.
Oh man, those people just get in the way of your conning.
Alexander truly was a man of mystery, but he was also an assumed con man, extortionist, bigamist, bootlegger, womanizer, possible murderer, and I'm sure at least a half dozen other things during his life. But as mentioned in the beginning,
Inventor.
much of his story is unconfirmed as either legend, hearsay, or sometimes, luckily, a recorded fact. Interviews with family members and ex-performers who knew him would claim that a lot of the seemingly crazy facts about his life were true, but other stories are still unconfirmed or unknown to this day. And I guess the most intriguing thing about this whole story, which we know so far, is how little we still know, and I myself always enjoy a good mystery.
Well, hooray.
And so
Yeah.
that's, from what I gathered, with everything that I researched about this man, is the story of Alexander, the man who knows.
Man.
So, do you guys have any other things you would like to say about this individual?
I think that I would like to know more about the man who knows, honestly. Um, and I also think it's interesting that Soapy Smith pops in. I feel like he's going to become like a frequent flyer on this podcast, just showing in,
I
doing
know,
cameos throughout
Or like
this.
a ghost sidekick.
Yeah.
yeah, when I was doing the research on this and the name Soapy Smith came up, I'm like, he's coming up again?
Old Soapy just getting himself in every
Soapy
little
is
nook and
just
cranny.
all over Western history, apparently. Um,
Oh, like his suds,
and
washing
Leaving
it
suds in
clean.
his
and
wake.
I really would love to read more about Alexander. I know that there are books out there. And in my research, I did look up to see which books were available to purchase. Unfortunately, the majority of the books you can find are either specifically in magic shops or on online auction sites,
Oh, they're
including
treasured
eBay.
items.
Yes, they are. A lot of these books are very hard to find, including this one about Dr. Q. I believe they only made about 1,000 copies of this book.
Of
So
this copyright monster.
it is really hard to find. And the one that I did find online that was available for sale was about $400. So
So if you
yeah,
have a copy, you can send it to us.
Yeah. Like and subscribe so we can pay for one of those copies.
absolutely. Or if anybody knows of where we could find more information on about this individual, maybe I could do a part deux.
That's two.
But yeah, everything I read about him was just so incredibly, I mean, even as problematic and crazy as the story of his life was, it was also incredibly fascinating. And I really enjoyed reading about him and pulling together this story for everybody. And I'm really, really happy that I could be able to do this for all of you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I
Yeah, it's a great story.
love that story.
I like that the man who knows, and we don't get to know a lot about him, which kind of means that he did a pretty good job as like a magician, Like he swept all his business under the rug and like,
Yeah, he's like the original man of mystery.
Except for
yeah.
the pornography bit at the end.
Well, I mean, I did say towards the beginning that he
He
was
saved it.
really
He
into
saved
women.
it at the end. He was like, you know what? We're gonna get real weird with it here.
I'm gonna be a normal person now. I'm starting
Uh-huh.
a porno cabin.
I mean, he basically was a superstar of his time, so go figure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who would have imagined that a celebrity would do such a thing? Well, I love that story, Jess.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
you.
I'm so happy I could do this for you all.
Yeah, no, I'm happy you brought it, and just if you are listening out there, go ahead, like and subscribe, or tell everyone you know that would enjoy this type of podcast who we are. It's one way we can grow, and we hope to bring you more. There's still a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. So, yeah, stay tuned. And until next time, keep climbing.
Well, I am very happy to everybody who showed up and listened to this story today, and I love you all. Have a safe and happy Halloween. And till next time, lovelies.
Till then, take a hike, everybody.
All right. That was really good, guys. I appreciate that.